Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Cadeto, Associate Dean of Library at Tuskegee State. I want to thank you all for being here today for this very special program. We have lined up a great speaker today that we wanted to present. This is actually a partnership that we developed earlier this year, and Dana Chandler has been here for a couple of days and actually did a presentation yesterday in North Carrollton at the Coatesworth Cultural Heritage Museum. And did a great job, I understand, at that presentation. And that's a partnership with the Division of Agriculture. We want to thank Dr. Bohart for being here today as well for this program and for partnering with us. We're very excited to have Dana Chandler here today to talk to us about George Washington Carver. This is a celebration of Black History Month, and we really appreciate him taking the time to be with us today to share his knowledge and his enthusiasm and his to be able to enlighten us on George Washington Carver. So we thank you for spending the weekend with us and being here for both programs. This is a great opportunity for us to share with our students and with the faculty here at Mississippi State University. We very much want to thank the person who's been in charge of this program, Sarah McCullough. She's done a great job of bringing these events to us. We really want to thank her for all of her hard work. Let's give Sarah a round. A lot of credit, but she does a great job. We thank her for all of her great work. And at this time, I'd like to ask Sarah to come up and introduce our speaker. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Stephen. Among the projects that Mississippi State University Libraries has underway is serving as the administrative headquarters of the Southern Literary Trail. The Southern Literary Trail covers Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi and celebrates the great 20th century classical writers. And we're delighted that through our involvement with the Southern Literary Trail, we've crossed paths with Dana Chandler. Mr. Chandler is the University Archivist and Associate Professor at Tuskegee. Tuskegee is on the Southern Literary Trail due to its association with the writers Albert Murray and Ralph Ellison, and that is just a very small tip of the iceberg of the great history of Tuskegee, which Mr. Chandler will share some insight into that history in a moment. He has worked in a variety of capacities. He's a trained surveyor, a civil engineer, and a project manager. He is a graduate of Auburn, our sister ag and engineering school in Alabama, and has worked on projects throughout the United States as well as in Central America, where he helped initiate recycling projects on behalf of various corporations. His love of history through archives, archaeology, really history in any form, led him into the field of archives and many other aspects of history. He's been at the Cobb Institute of Archaeology this morning, so he has a wide range of interest in the field of history. So we're very pleased that he has joined us here on campus and is going to share with us some very interesting insight into the fascinating man, George Washington Carver. So welcome, Dana Chandler.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd also like to thank Dean Coleman for putting up with me the last 2 times I've been here, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. I'm sure you're going to hear some things about Carver you've never heard about before. Let me preface my comments by talking about Tuskegee for just a minute. When you think of Tuskegee University, you think of George Washington Carver, Woodrow Washington, maybe the Tuskegee Airmen, and the infamous syphilis study, which did not happen on our campus. What you don't think about is the 600 historically significant collections that we have in our archives. We have over 250,000 photographs, making ours one of the largest collections of African American related themes, images in the world. We've just begun digitizing our huge collection of real tapes, which include speeches by Martin Luther King, Jackie Robinson, Muhammad Ali, and almost any civil rights speaker you can think of. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that they're going to talk before an all-black audience different than they will to the media? We have some amazing audio that we digitized and made available to the world. Our website has had over 900,000 hits in a little over 8 years. 900,000. 45% from abroad. Of the 45% from abroad, a wonderful thing called Google Analytics. And I've got to look at some of the pages that people are looking at around the world. And what are they looking at? Places like Vietnam. This morning, I checked. Vietnam, again Brazil, Venezuela, Canada, several from the United States, France, Georgia, the old Georgia, country of Georgia. They're all looking at our same pages. They're looking at George Washington Carver's bulletins. You might ask, why are they looking at George Washington Carver's bulletins? Because they're farming in the exact same way that we farmed at the turn of the century. They don't have access to fertilizers and pesticides like we do today. So they're using those bulletins to make their lives better. That's pretty cool. I don't care where you're at, that's pretty cool. Over 300,000 people are looking at our bulletins, and it's making their lives better. I like that a lot. So yes, it's important. It's important for me to be the truth bearer regarding Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, and others. We have 600 historically significant collections. That means that our collections are relevant to the region, nation, or international. This man certainly has made an impact. But do you really know him? That's the question I want to ask this morning. So I've entitled it, Exploring the Myths and Clarifying Some Criticisms about George Washington Carver. So let's talk about Carver the myth for just a minute. Beginning in the 1970s, revisionist historians have castigated Carver for what they claim his ascension to fame based on an exaggerated or fictional version of his accomplishments. How many times have I read that? And it still frustrates me. Likewise, detractors and supporters alike have pointed to a lack of scientific formula and experimentation that could verify the claims of his brilliance and methods. You're going to find out different today, okay? There was a lady that published the recent biography of George Washington Carver, and it's through LSU Press, not Mississippi Press or University of Alabama Press. Make sure we all realize that. I contacted the editor and told them that that book doesn't need to be published. You see, she had written a book on George Washington Carver and yet had never been to the archives at Tuskegee University to do any type of research. So I said, well, that's just wrong. I said, no, that's dishonest. That's academic dishonesty. And I told the editor that myself. He said, well, we've already got it under contract, we've already got it published. So I was very fortunate to be asked to do the review of the book. Edie Powell over there in the back, she's read it, she knows what it was like. I did not cut her any slack at all. And I'm not going to cut any of these others any slack, let me tell you. So interpreting history, historical revisionism is the re-examination of the accepted facts and interpretations of history with an eye towards updating it with newly discovered, more accurate, less biased information. Broadly, it is a skeptical approach that history, as it has been traditionally told, may not be entirely accurate, and that perhaps an accurate history is unobtainable as a dispassionate autobiography. Yeah, I guess it is, if you don't go to the source, if you don't explore every avenue. But while reinterpreting past events in light of new facts is the essence of good scholarship, corrupt history may distort these facts as a means of influencing readers' beliefs and actions for politically or socially motivated reasons. True statement, isn't it? Very much so, especially today. Revisionist history sometimes is also used to promote or slander persons or promote or discredit an idea. This fact usually backfires as often as it succeeds, and in this case it will. It's just taken several years for it to backfire on some of these other individuals. Bias. I tell my students all the time, we all have a problem, and that's our bias. We have a box that we look out of. That's our lens. That's our paradigm, our worldview. And it's influenced by our religion, our politics, our race, our culture, even our sex. They bias our opinions. The key is recognizing historical bias and interpreting the evidence through the bias. My colleagues have done a great job within their respective works to a certain extent. But there are still questions to answer. Granted, for some of the questions, we will never have an answer. That's probably true. So, this is the historical perspective of Carver. Before we go any further, I've got to point out something. Right here is the only known photograph of Uncle Mose Carver. Uncle Mose Carver was the man who raised George Washington Carver. We have the original photograph to that. There's much more I could talk about with each one of these photographs, but they won't like it because we will be here till 3 or 4 this afternoon. And some of them have already informed me they've got to leave in just a little bit, so let's get to some of the stuff, some of the interesting information. Biographer Linda McMurray, and she's a fellow grad of Auburn University. I remember reading her biography of Carver when I was in grad school. And I thought at that time, before I was even the archivist at Tuskegee, there was a lot of bias there. She says the romance of his story and the eccentricities, okay, I'll cross that word off my list. I've had problems with it for a long time. There we go. The eccentricities of his personality led to his metamorphosis into a kind of folk saint both in his lifetime and after. Separating the real George Washington Carver from the symbolic portrayals of his life is difficult. Reality and mythology became blurred even within Carver's own mind, and his life did have mythic qualities. You know what I don't understand? How Linda McMurray could say the things she did, because she never talked to him. She never interviewed him. And she didn't have access to the things that I have access to. Oh. This one always just frustrates me to no end. Barry Mackintosh, the historian of the National Park Service, writes this. In 2004, George Washington Carver became a legend in his own lifetime, with a popular reputation far transcending the significance of his accomplishments. His agricultural education and extension work at Tuskegee Institute was praiseworthy, but notice this, not spectacular in nature and impact. The uses for soils and plants he developed or advocated were not of pioneering importance in science. Those are pretty definitive statements, aren't they? But they're statements that are made without all the information. His legendary reputation depended less on these supposed achievements than on his psychological and social utility to both blacks and whites. Now let's talk about Carver. I want to start by saying this right off the bat. Carver, he was a prima donna. In every sense of the word, he was a prima donna. He wanted, when he first came to Tuskegee, he wouldn't stay with, in the room that he was assigned because he had to stay with another professor. He wanted a room of his own. And of course that brought some animosity between him and the rest of the teaching staff at Tuskegee. But he stayed on his own. But I want you to read this about Carver. Carver had 3 honorary degrees from Simpson College, Rochester College, and Selma University. Yet he writes his mentor, Dr. Pamela, in a letter dated 1926. He said, "Dear Professor, I don't want them to call me doctor because I didn't learn it. That's humility, isn't it? That's humility. He may have been a prima donna, but he was humble. Elmer Keel, University of Missouri. This is 1961. I'll give you a little bit of background before I go any further with this one. The Carver homestead in Diamond, Missouri contacted their Midwest department, the headquarters for the National Park Service, and said, look, what we would like to do is have a definitive history of George Washington Carver written, explaining his scientific accomplishments. So they went to work on it. And they published this document in 1961, which was never supposed to be put into public reading. Never. And yet every university has a copy of this one, just about. And here's what they said. Dr. Carver appears now to have been an intelligent and gifted individual with great perseverance and very interested even in scientific fields. Due to the circumstances under which he first went to Tuskegee Institute, he was unable to follow any one interest to completion. Well, we'll see that. We'll see. He did not make any great scientific discoveries, nor did he further scientific knowledge to any great extent. He did say, based on available information, Dr. Carver's products were not the result of new ideas or procedures. Key phrase there, available information. Biographer Rackham Holt, she, most people don't realize that Rackham Holt was a she, wrote this. The only major Carver biography, this says, only major Carver biography with the claim to objectivity. Rackham Holt's George Washington Carver appeared the year of his death, 1943. Holt recognized Carver's products as not revolutionary in themselves and saw his major contribution as that of a publicist. Yet the romantic tone of her book did little to counter his established image. Let me say this also about Rackham Holt. She spoke to Carver just a few times, but most of her conversations were with Carver's friend and colleague, and that was it. There was no direct conversation. Austin Curtis did most of the discussions with Rackham Holt regarding Carver. Blogger Chris Pearson writes, George Washington Carver was not a saint whose soulful mobility enabled him to overcome insurmountable obstacles in order to fulfill his altruistic mission of saving the agrarian South. Instead, he was a smart, determined man who had no objection to exaggerating and aggrandizing his real successes to enjoy the perks and honors of fame. The mystery then becomes how and why the apotheosis of Carver from exceptional human being to the personification of humane science took place. And perhaps more perplexingly, why that immaculate image of George Washington Carver persists to this day, despite easily accessed, well-documented evidence to the contrary. And my question about this, since the archives has been open now for 12 years, it was closed for 10 years prior to that, I've never met Chris Pearson. So, easily accessed, well-documented evidence to the contrary, how does he know? He's never been there. He's never seen this information. How can he make such a claim? Some compiled biographies of Carver reached other conclusions. Granted, they went too far the other way, and they did. Carver the legend. In 1946, the popular biographer Herman Hagedorn held Carver single-handedly responsible for the tariff on peanuts as a result of his showmanship before the Congressional Committee, and largely responsible for freeing the South from dependence on cotton. His overall assessment of Carver was a breathtaking combination of scientist and saint. Two other serious works treating Carver appeared during the post-war period. In Titans of the Soil, issued in 1949 by the University of North Carolina Press, Edward Jerome Diaz attributed to Carver's discoveries the establishment of major business enterprises. So, didn't happen. Even though Carver's laboratory records were unknown, Langston Hughes wrote with unintentional irony in famous American Negroes, from Carver's small laboratory at Tuskegee came formulas in agricultural chemistry that enriched the entire Southland indeed the whole of America and the world. Nope, it didn't happen. The last and perhaps most extensive mass circulation of the Carver myth came from the condensation of Lawrence Elliott's George Washington Carver manual overcame in the May of 1965 Reader's Digest issue. I talked about this very subject last Friday before a room full of senior citizens, 60. And they all remembered this Reader's Digest article. Wow. Elliott's book had Carver in conjunction with Baldwin responsible for making peanuts the principal crop in much of Alabama prior to the First World War, then for developing well over 300 peanut products manufactured in scores of factories. The South's economic salvation was due to Carver alone. Nope. And I want to clarify a couple things about Carver and peanuts. He did not invent peanut butter. Peanut butter was invented by the pre-Inca peoples. What Carver did do, though, is he mixed the peanut paste and oil together so it stayed together, therefore making it smooth. So that smooth peanut butter you like to eat? Thank George Washington Carver. But that's not very significant, is it? For me it is. Every time I eat a peanut butter sandwich, I think of that. So an honest examination of the information is in order regarding Carver. And let me say this about George Washington Carver. I want to give you a little more background about the man. And there's so much I could talk to you about him. He was an artist. He was a musician. He taught piano on campus. He also was in the choir. He crocheted. He knitted. The man was an amazing individual. His painting, his artwork is unbelievable. You're going to get to see some of this stuff in just a few minutes. If history is a continuing dialogue between the past and present, then we must take into consideration both sides of the story, correct? So let's look at it. The arguments are, Chris Pearson says, since Carver left no formulas or other records of his processes beyond one patent, and he's wrong there. For a cosmetic use utilizing peanuts, it was impossible for later investigators to evaluate most of the peanut products attributed to him or to document his production of them. Because the great majority of products on Carver's list could be made more easily and cheaply from other substances, they were a little more than curiosity value. Many adhere to this notion in one of his other, and I don't know why Chris Pearson has picked on Carver as his main source of enjoyment in life, but he has. In an article, online article, George Washington Carver, Hero or Hyde, he says, 3 patents, so he goes ahead and disagrees with himself. I've always found that a historian that disagrees with himself, something's wrong. 3 patents, 1 for cosmetics and 2 for paints, were issued to George Washington Carver in the years 1925 1927. Like the other products, they were never, however, commercially successful. That is true. Aside from these patents and some recipes for food, he left no formulas or procedures for making his products. He did not keep a laboratory notebook. Ignorant. Because he did. He just doesn't know. So with all the information above, we have this assessment of Carver. Since his personal attributes alone were insufficient to support claims of greatness, his laboratory work was revised and extended to a level of wizardry to be joined by his exploits in saving the Southern economy. So how do I respond? How do I respond? Oh, there's so much I can say. But like I said, I'm limited. George Washington Carver, and this is the Booker T. Washington Agricultural School on Wheels. The very first Jessup wagon was designed by Carver. And we could spend the rest of our time just talking about the Jessup wagon, what he accomplished through that. Or talking about his penal and his work with polio victims. We could talk about that. But here's the key. Interpreting information. First of all, just because no information regarding his experiments was found, it does not mean that they did not exist, does it? It doesn't mean that. Sometimes information is given based on the question asked. This can mean that some things are emphasized while others are not. I was talking yesterday about my alcohol. My papa was one interesting fellow. He really was. Depending on how you put it, depending on how you asked it, depending on his state of mind that day, I may get 3 different answers to the same question, asked at 3 different times. The thing is, they all may be correct. And they all were correct when it came to Papa. They seemed contradictory. I later found out that they were all the truth. Just because one piece of information seems to contradict another, does not mean that they're mutually exclusive. Let me explain. Tuskegee University Archives has 4 different autobiographies, including one oral history interview that was transcribed by W.A. Liston and M.M. Rudd. One mentions only Carver and his brother Jim. One mentions that he had a brother Jim and 2 sisters, twins, that died. One mentions that he had a brother Jim and another sister, Melissa, that was carried off with him and his mother. Which version is correct? Can we discount one for the other? No, we can't. Maybe all are correct, and it just depends on his memory of the time and the questions asked of him. I think the latter. Big part of the problem that they all had to deal with was a lack of definitive evidence. Sometimes we need to extrapolate. Yes, we do. Carver's 3 patents had to meet certain requirements. The U.S. Patent Act's general requirements for a utility patent state: whoever invents or discovers any new and useful process, machine, manufacture, or composition of matter, or any new and useful improvements thereof may obtain a patent subject to the conditions and requirements of this title. Did you get this? It says any new and useful improvements thereof may obtain a patent. In other words, for an invention to be patentable, it must be statutory, it must be new, it must be useful, and it must be non-obvious. That's pretty interesting. Remember, according to everybody that we read, Carver really wasn't a scientist, just a self-promoter. Big problem, part of the problem, a lack of definitive evidence. Sometimes evidence needs to be found. Lack of evidence does not mean that there was not any. During Elmer Ellis's visit to Tuskegee in 1961, he and his companions sought out information about Carver's experiments. Let me explain. They came down, you notice the date, by the way? 1961. When is that, really? What's going on at that time? Civil rights movement's going on at that time, isn't it? They write a letter to Tuskegee. They say in that letter, hey, we're coming and we want to see this, 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 and this. Have it out and have it ready. They get to Tuskegee, they contacted B.D. Mager, Jimmy Henderson, Clarence Mason, and Jesse Guzman. Jesse Guzman was the archivist at Tuskegee. All basically said that they had very little information. What they did not know, and that we now know, Elaine Thomas, then director of the Carver Museum, was not available to be interviewed, therefore they could not see the materials that she had. Now, I'll ask you a question. They demanded that they were going to get to see these things. And Tuskegee, well, civil rights movement. Tired of demanding things. And so Elaine Thomas goes on vacation. Do you think that was a planned vacation? No, she went on vacation as soon as they stepped off the plane. So they didn't get to see everything, did they? They didn't know about the 160-something boxes of Carver's material that we have in our archives. What Elaine had. Information that dispels claims that he was not a good scientist. Here it goes. We found 7 notebooks. One notebook has been damaged by fire, and it's found in a building that we were renovating. Adams Hall was scheduled to be completely renovated during the middle of the summer. It was 100 degrees, 100% humidity. Me and my staff were going through everything that's in there. It's Elaine Thomas's old office. We're going through it, we're clearing it out. And in the box, I find something incredible. I find, for the first time, I'd never seen the others. This is the first one I've ever seen of the Carver notebooks. The other six notebooks contain Carver's experiments and drawings and observations. You want to see them? Let's look at them. Those are notebooks. I didn't bring them, I know, but the reason why I didn't bring them is because they're, listen, Carver, bless his heart, he was all about, using things cheaply. I mean, he wandered around the community, he'd gather up tin foil, he'd gather up string, rubber bands, glassware, you name it. And he would use the worst kind of paper to write on. But these are 6 and 7 notebooks. What do they contain? What's that right there? I like these things. I like them in the summertime between 2 pieces of bread, some mayonnaise, and salt and pepper. That's a tomato. I tell that to my colleagues and some of my students, and they say, "What? You eat a tomato sandwich?" Yes, I do. I love them. I said, the better the tomato, the stronger the acid, the better. But what you don't see is all of the other things that are on here. These are some of his wonderful calculations. What the notebooks reveal. Notebooks are filled with Carver's experiments, revealing his environmental sensitivity. He spent many hours working with the animals trying to better the varieties. I actually have probably one of them, and Dr. Edith Powell back there, she's on the 4th row back corner over there. She's been working on a document about Carver and his amaryllis. Many pages are dedicated to water purity and usage. He saw how to reuse plant matter in a variety of ways beyond cooking, such as for paint and better feed. Some experiments aided him in preparing his bulletins. But let's talk specifics, okay? This was found in a notebook that had been burned by the fire, the one that we found in Adams Hall. Here it shows some of the seeds. He talks about some of the diseases of plants and how to deal with those diseases of plants. So why have they been hidden for so long? Jesse Guzman compiled this list of the sayings of Carver. And one of them that she remembered was this one here. One reason I never patent my products, Carver said, is that if I did, it would take so much time, I would get nothing else done. But maybe I don't want my discoveries to benefit specific favored persons. Now, this is not necessarily talking about whites. He's talking about others that might take his inventions and run with them and take advantage of them and make money out of them. Here's what caught our eye. This caught my eye years ago when reading his bulletin. And I want you to watch this closely. In bulletin number 35, published in 1925, entitled How to Grow the Cowpea and 40 Ways of Preparing It as a Table Delicacy, Carver made an interesting statement. Let me stop for just a minute and note this. Somebody asked me about posting this on the internet. I have no problem with that. We have digitized all of Carver's bulletins and made them free access for the world. We're the only place that you can ever see all of Carver's bulletins. Notice what he says. Thus far, the demand has been far greater than the supply, hence prices have always been good. You know what they're talking about here? The cowpea? Yeah, you do. No. They're field peas. When I was a kid growing up, we had field peas all the time. Did you? I loved them. He's talking about the field pea, okay? That's what he calls the cowpea. He says, for green manuring, it is universally grown and admired. When running varieties are planted with corn, sorghum, etc., it makes a very superior silage, greatly relished by all kinds of stock. He begins the article by stating that cowpea stands out prominently. Agreed. Now, that the phrase green manuring no doubt means the cowpea could be used as a cover crop, grown primarily to replenish the soil with useful nutrients. But in this bulletin, he lists 7 reasons for growing the cowpea that go beyond its primary use for food or ground cover. I'm going to say this about Carver, and I can say this definitively. Carver is the first, and I can't come up with a better way of saying this, so I'll say it like I do. He's the first African-American green scientist. There's no doubt about it. You're going to see one in just a minute. He was looking for a way to use the canopy to help man, beast, and earth in a natural and safe way. And bulletin number 41, published in 1936, entitled "Can Livestock Be Raised Profitably in Alabama?" Carver wrote, "It's easy to see that our farm animals are great fertilizer factories, turning out the cheapest and best known product for the permanent building up of the soil. In addition to this farmyard manure, there are also many thousands of tons of the finest fertilizers going to place all over the South in the form of decaying leaves of the forest and the rich sediment of the swamp known as muck. Every idle moment should be put in gathering up these fertilizers to make the mixture of compost as follows." And he provides a very good description of how to develop that compost. Interestingly, he starts out with the canopy as an essential food source for livestock, whose manure fertilizes the sand. That's circular, isn't it? You're going off, the cows eat the peas, the cows then have the manure goes back in the ground, and you raise the cattle. That's amazing. Carver's participation in reusing, recycling, and utilizing earth-friendly measures was more than helping people to succeed economically. It was part of his world view. And the thing is, most people don't realize this, Carver could not and would not separate the spiritual from the physical. He would not. He believed that the great Creator has put oil and ores on this earth to give us a breathing spell. Now listen to this. As we exhaust them, we must be prepared to fall back on our farms. We can learn to synthesize materials for every human need from the things that we grow. That's prophetic, isn't it? That's prophetic. Because of his awareness of the finite quantity of natural resources, he sought to reuse those materials to continue to aid mankind. That's amazing. It's amazing. Oh, yeah, this is the same guy who never did anything worth anything. Self-promoter. Let's see. Going green, crop rotation. You've heard that. It's a big deal right now, with going green, the green movement. Crop rotation has become an important phrase in the green movement, especially regarding organic farming. Forage and grain legumes, especially clover, must be used in organic crop rotations as a soil fertility increasing component. Carver was well aware of this at least a century ago. And I will say this, most of the people that are going to our website looking at bulletins looking for this. This is his plot rotation plan, and it's very exact. But that's not all he has in that notebook. He has the plot rotation plan. 100 years before today. And here's Carver spelling out in detail how to plant your crops, how to get beneficial nutrients to those crops. Carver worked to develop paints and stains from natural products. This is some of his formulas for paints and stains, and it's amazing to me. And we found out all kinds of things about Carver and his work with stains. But some of the interesting things, and being an archivist at Tuskegee, when I got there, like I said, it was 10 years it had been closed, and it was a mess. First 2 months, we cleaned up 16 pickup truck loads of trash out of the archives. When we did that, I found all kinds of things. I found 2 boxes with these 2 panels. They said about that tall. I got one of them on display. The other one is so fragile I can't. But the one right here, if you'll notice, it says, "Some uses of the wisteria vine." Now, where I come from, you find wisteria, you know what you do? You pull it down and you burn it, don't you? You kill it as quick as you can. Not Carver. Not Carver. So what Carver did was he saw this wisteria everywhere. He thought, how can we use that vine that's everywhere, a nuisance plant, to make things better. So you know what he did? Well, I can talk about these others, but let's talk about this thing in the middle. You know what that is? Some of you younger folk don't know what that is. But what that is a rug beater. A rug beater. And it has been noted, if you put a paper bag over it, which some did, it's also a fly flap or fly swatter. That's what folks call today. The kids could take that, make the rug beater or the fly flap, and sell it for 10 cents, making money for the family and for themselves. That's going green, isn't it? On the other side, these are okra fibers, not mustaches, okra fibers. And these paints right here, the black and the red, and then there's a yellow, are still as vibrant today as they were back then when we first did it. Does that say something about his abilities? No, let's go further. Carver stains were used locally in Tuskegee, such as the former White Episcopal Church, and with his dear friend, Henry Ford, at the Richmond Hill Plantation in Richmond Hill, Georgia, which he used his stains to stain the office in the house for Henry Ford. Guess what? I have a bench, a church bench, that was stained by Carver. It still looks as good today as it did then. It's on display right now at the Episcopal Church in North Alabama, near what's the name of that? Sand Mountain. His experimentation went beyond investigation to recycling. Now, think. December 7, 1941, the beginning of World War II. What a lot of people don't think about is how all those ships, all those boats, all those trucks, all those cars, everything that needed paint, would have to be painted several times over. Where do you get paint? So Carver came up with a unique method. He said, what we're going to do is we're going to base the paint using used motor oil. The problem that he and Curtis encountered was that they could not come up with a method to do it economically. So Pittsburgh Paints ends up with the contract. But can you imagine using the used motor oil that you take out of a vehicle to make the paint that you're going to paint back with? And we're actually thinking about taking this and patenting it ourselves. Carver wanted young people to be informed about nature. He wrote a 223-page manuscript called Botany Made Easy, to be used in common schools, high schools, and academies. And he drew all the drawings for it. All the figures are his own drawings. Textbook covered many plants seen throughout the South and the nation. Sometimes they even talk about what you can do with those plants. Webster's Dictionary defines a scientist as a person learned in science, especially natural science, a scientific investigator. Do you think Carver was one of those? Sure, I do too. But still, there are detractors. Carver saw himself as a trailblazer, leaving the details of many of his discoveries to others. That's what he felt. He felt, oh, hey, what we should do is once I get this figured out, then we'll just leave it for others. Problem is that people haven't seen it. They haven't been to the archives. You know this much, everyone, if they would come, I would show them. In 1960, Lord Russell Carver was elected Fellow of the Royal Society for the Encouragement of Arts, Manufactures, and Commerce, London, England. That's 1916. Long before his fame had spread to the rest of the nation. 1916, he became a fellow, a royal fellow. So I wanted to know, what does it take to become a royal fellow? Couldn't call him from Tuskegee because I don't have a ballot across the pond. So I went home, my own home, and I called over there and I said, look, what does it take to become a royal fellow? And this is what they wrote me back. The Society's core members are the fellows. Fellows are eligible to use the post-nominals FRSA. Fellows are elected to membership of the fellowship and must have demonstrated achievement or potential related to the arts, manufactures, and commerce. That doesn't show up much in any of the literature regarding Carver, that he was a royal fellow. Certainly they don't spend time talking about it being done in 1916. But this is many of the honors, the first of many honors that Carver had. Yeah, would the RSA have chosen someone who could not meet their standards? No, of course not. Many claims have been made concerning Carver's achievement, but have many people that used his bulletins been consulted regarding whether their situation was better after reading them? I wish somebody would do a survey of the 300,000 people that have accessed our website and look at the bulletins to see if their lives are better now. There's got to be something going on that would cause these people to continuously look to those bulletins for answers. How many did he influence with his teaching? Let alone the bulletins. I just don't know. I haven't got a definitive answer for that. All I know is what I currently know from our website. The problem is that over the years, what's happened is a lot of people just regurgitate the same thing over and over again. And that's frustrating for me as a historian. To read these books about George Washington Carver and to realize they're all saying the same thing that Rackham Holt said. Basically, they missed it. They missed it. So Carver, I hope today, at least here at Mississippi State, you understand him a little bit better. That he was a good, great scientist who still continues to make an impact on the world today. Thank you. Do we have any questions real quick? Yes, ma'am.
Are you planning to write a more definitive, correct biography?
Let me talk to you about writing a book right now. I'm just finishing up with the index for our first book, which is entitled The Man Furthest Down, Tuskegee's Work to Improve Human Health. My co-author's back there. 1881 to 1987. The index has about broke me from writing a book. I will say this, but yes, my co-author, she's pressing right now to have another book written, and it involves Carver, so you never can tell what we're going to do. I don't know what the future's going to hold. I guess it's like giving your first spanking, before you mess up again. I'm one of those kids that it was just a short while, and then I was getting another spanking. Yes, sir.
So Tuskegee is a well-known land-grant university.
Yes, it is.
Did Dr. Carver talk a lot about the land-grant mission in his memoirs or in his notes?
Not really. George Washington Carver was, head of the Extension Service at Tuskegee. And so, yes, we're going to see a lot of stuff about his work in Extension. And there are some things over in the Auburn University archives. Auburn University was the headquarters for the Extension Service in the state of Alabama. And Tuskegee was a 10%er, of Extension work. And although we are a land-grant university, along with Alabama A&M in North Alabama and Auburn, we only get 3% of the funds that were given for that benefit. Carver spends more time trying to help people than extolling his the historical aspect of what he was accomplishing. Any other questions? Comments? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that excellent presentation, and I'm so glad that you were with us yesterday at our coach work. I think you added a little bit today, or maybe I just listened more carefully, but thank you, let's please thank you. As you noted, this is really an in-depth presentation, and we appreciate that very much. And one of the questions was asked yesterday, when do you plan to write a book? So now, you have that question again, you must get started.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe Dr. Marslak could give you some pointers about indexing, and I think David Nolan is here as well as, they just finished an outstanding memoir collection. We hope this is the first of several opportunities for us to work with Mr. Chandler in bringing the access of this kind of information on behalf of Carver and other outstanding individuals to the library. So we're not going to let you go away. We certainly thank Sarah McCullough for bringing this program here. We want to thank Dr. Bohosh again for working with us. And these are very important programs for us, for all of us. And we hope that this is just the beginning. So thank all of you for being here, and please join us. I think that Linda Graham has some coffee. Do you have coffee? And some refreshments. So let's thank Mr.